So, so here with on Sanity for Sweden's channel, and I'll put a link on the Tacitus Today channel as well. So Stefan's got over 10,000. I think it's 11,000 subscribers now. Congratulations. Um,
Thank you.
so uh, check out those videos from Sanity for Sweden. Um, on this chat that we're having, we've had a few already, and we hope to have a few more as well. Um, One of the things that struck me today, I was looking at one of the Fox News channels, and they had a series of talks and lectures about human rights and so on. It was the usual cast of people. There's several hours of different groups, and they were all talking about human rights from a very leftist perspective. And it's straight from central casting. The convener, who was a hairy armpit lesbian who was teaching gender studies, was the compere, and then the various people were introduced, and all of them were the victim. It was a victim Olympics of speakers. One speaker was a black lesbian who's also blind. And I don't think it's possible to have more victim points than that. But these were the speakers who were all morally lecturing the rest of us on what was correct behaviour. What was interesting though is every single one of these people is being funded by taxpayer dollars. The whole they've got a paid space on the channel. The venue that they're using is paid by taxpayer dollars. Some of these people are being flown around all over the world to morally lecture the rest of us on human rights and to insist that we're all on the verge of returning to 1930s fascist Nazism, any day now, and so on. And all these, the cost of doing this would run into just a few that I looked at, hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars, and it just the thought sort of struck me that if they weren't being funded so handsomely by taxpayer money, we wouldn't even be hearing from them. It's only the taxpayer money that's propping them up, and I don't know whether you're seeing the same thing in Sweden and around Scandinavia generally. Is it the taxpayer money and the NGOs and Soros, but is it particularly taxpayer money that's bringing these people their public forum, if you like?
Yeah, interesting story. Yeah, we have the same thing here in Sweden, of course. It's taxpayers' money who pay for these guys, and it's quite pathetic. I think we have to learn something from this, because I think if you are portraying yourself as a victim all the time, uh, people will buy it in the beginning, but eventually people will start to get fed up with it. I think I've seen this myself, because they just go on and on and on. And I think we can learn something from this, that we ourselves never ever portray ourselves as victims. It can be sort of tempting to do it, or it's like it's a popular thing to do, but it's a trap. If you start to portray yourself as a victim, you start to think as a victim. And I've seen some of this, of course, in the discussions on alternative media, how we are victims and so on, but we are really not, and we should not never go into this trap. Just
I agree.
do well and speak out. That's what you should do, and you should earn your income, do well. That's the ticket, I think.
Oh yes, couldn't
It's
agree more.
despicable behavior. You know, these people should really be embarrassed if they had a look from another perspective. It's despicable.
Oh, it is. I wonder whether some people ask me, well, what can we do? There are so many things that are going wrong in the view of some people, that the feminists seem to be everywhere, and the media is controlled by the globalists, and what can we do? Sometimes people ask me, and I think one of the things is go to your local politicians, your local member, whoever's elected for your district or region, and say, look, you have to stop funding these causes. I don't agree that my taxpayer dollars are going to fund blind black lesbians to run around the world preaching to the rest of us. You have to stop that and spend our taxpayer dollars on things that are better schools, better roads, better infrastructure, better airports, and so on. And these are the things. And the people, the elected representatives must become accountable again to the people for the things they do and the things they support and the policies they have. And if they can't give the electors an answer, then to just keep on writing politely and respectfully, but keep on writing and keep on asking for meetings in your local parliamentarian's office and insist that they stop funding these these people and these groups and these globalists who are determined to reduce our standard of living and take away our legal rights. And that can be one thing. And just sort of adding to that, I was driving down the street of the town that I live in, and there was a big banner that was put up saying, violence against women, we don't accept it. And fine, well, nothing wrong with that. That's okay. But why is that such a big issue that it requires a 30 by 5 meter sign in the middle of the town? That would have been expensive to put together, and taxpayer dollars or ratepayer dollars are paid for that. So I made some inquiries, and the local council that put the sign up has recently hired a radical feminist and who's pushing a radical feminist agenda. Part of her salary is being paid by the state government or the regional government as well. So it's a very coordinated political and government initiative. And the studies that they're relying on are produced by a lesbian gender studies group from some fourth tier university, which is all rubbish. There's no proper information there. It's just a cooked up bit of nonsense. So by making inquiries, and they were uncomfortable. I was obviously the only person who made any inquiries, and so but my point was, look, I don't agree that my ratepayer dollars are paying for this. If you want to do that, you have to ask. I'm not paying or agreeing to pay for activism from a small group of left-wing globalist activists. And so we can all go out wherever we see this. It could be in a doctor's surgery where they've got signs about violence against women or this or that, or any of these sort of globalist things. And we should ask, well, where did this information come from? Who's paying for this? And if the pressure is great enough in the end, these people are either going to have to justify it or stop doing it. I don't know what it's like where but any public building you go to in Australia, any public building is filled with signs about violence against women and racism and Nazis are everywhere and these sorts of things. And it's all nonsense. It's just sowing social division. It's not healing anything. Is it similar in Sweden?
Well, I agree with you. It doesn't solve anything. Well, we have about the same, I think. We have media, absolutely. TV, absolutely. We see these guys. And I think people sort of get the impression that these people are everywhere. And this is the general opinion. But I think more and more people are realizing that it's not. This is actually a few people, gathering together to promote this, to have this propaganda going. And if you ask anyone, any Swede, anyone, they will tell you something else. They don't agree with this in general, of course. It's just a media inflated propaganda machine. So, well, it's pathetic.
Oh,
But
it's changing though. I don't. I think you mentioned this in a couple of your videos that we're all starting to sense that there's a change now. Enough people in the West have had enough, and they're expressing that view and they're expressing their will, and it looks like things could be changing, and that the globalists will be on the defensive, and once they're on the defensive, then they have to justify what they've done, and I don't think they can because they've got no argument at the end of the day. And this means that we could be seeing a change. Yeah, when people start doing these groups start doing these things, they're trying to change society for their own ends, their own purposes. That they think they can control it right the way through to the conclusion, and that's what a lot of people thought. They thought that in the French Revolution, and when they called the Estates General meeting, which was to raise taxes in May of 1789, everyone thought the agenda began. The king even turned up to the meeting and was chatting to the various factions in the just before the French Revolution. He had no idea that in a short space of time his head was going to be cut off, and they were
Right.
all sitting around. But once they lose control of the agenda, then it can go in any direction, and that's when the people that started can often themselves end up with their heads on pikes. And I think maybe we're witnessing the beginning of something like that now.
Yeah, I think so. I see this in Sweden. It's very obvious. They are surprised. And you see this now as they are trying to form a government. About 95% of their effort is aimed at stopping the nationalists. That's what they talk about. So they are sort of desperate. And I think they are like the French king, surprised what's going on. They have been using this propaganda for years and years and years, and all their friends were saying the same thing. So they thought this would work, right? And then you see as nationalists go up and up and up, and they are going down, they become desperate. So this is all they do now, basically, trying to stop this movement. So of course they are afraid, they are scared, they are desperate. I love to
Well,
witness this. I just love to see this happening. You know, their eyes, the body language of these people as they become more and more frantic about trying to stop the nationalists. You see, I just love to witness this, and
the
they can't
mistakes they're
stop it.
going to make, they'll start making mistakes, and it'll be
Oh
even
yeah,
more entertaining.
it's hilarious to see this, and it's every day you can see it on the news or in debates or in media articles and so on. It's great fun. Of course, I still get pissed off with what they are doing, but really they are making some outrageous mistakes as they are trying to stop this. And you see it, for instance, the two political parties in Sweden that have been working the most trying to stop the nationalists, they are dropping now very quickly. So what can they do? You know,
Uh, well, what do you think is going to happen here? Do you think it's possible that there could be fresh elections, or what do you think is going to happen that can break the stalemate?
this is what I think. They will now next time. This will be in January. This is what I think. They will find a way to form a government. So they will have to compromise somehow. So this will be a globalist center party, sort of left wing globalist government in Sweden. So they have to. If they don't agree with each other, there will be a new election in April, I think. So, and they don't want this, of course,
Yeah,
because they will lose. The nationalists will do even better. So they will make a deal. And I say, as I have said in my videos, this is what we need in Sweden. I'm sorry to say this, but this is what we need. We need these guys to govern Sweden some more because it needs to get worse in Sweden before the Swedish citizens really starts to wake up and act. That's how I see things. So let them get on with it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. If assuming that they sort out some compromise, as you say, how many years until the next national Swedish election? Is it
It's
4 or 5 year terms?
it's a 4 year term.
Uh, that's a long time when you were waiting for change. I'd be
Yes.
surprised if it's a coalition like this that's put together under such strain and anxiety. I'd be surprised if it lasted the full 4 years. There's a possibility that it could rupture and there's another election before. Or is it a fixed term in Sweden? Can they go early if they want to do an election?
Yeah, if they really fuck it up, which they might very well do. But there's another aspect to this, and that is the pressure. In the meanwhile, during these 4 years, of course, the nationalists will grow because the globalists, socialists will make mistakes, as they always do. So, and then there will be pressure from the citizens because these guys, they want to be elected again, of course, after the 4 years. So they will have to change, you see. So things will happen, of course. It's not just the elections. It's a lot what's happening in between elections as well. So yeah. So but I
It,
think it's good if they can just do their mistakes, fuck it up as they do, and people will wake up because this is what we need in Sweden. There's just 20% of us now that is fairly awake, and we need much, much more. We need 60% of the Swedish population really knowing what is happening in this country, and voting properly.
how do you think this can happen, given that the globalists control, well, the major political parties, they control the media, they control what the kids are learning in school and college. How do you think it's going to be possible to change the minds of that many people within a short space of time without some sort of major, game changing or deal changing sort of event? It's going to be. Is it even possible just through alternative internet media? Do you think to change the minds of that many people?
Yes, I think it is. But I think what needs to happen is for the population to get poorer. And you see this in France. France, they when they got these terrorist attacks, they lit candles, right? But now, when they increased the taxes on fuel, and the French people were getting poorer, then they really started to respond to what's going on. So I think this is exactly what needs to happen in Sweden. People need to feel it themselves. They
Yeah,
read,
yeah.
they read, they read about the terrorists and they get upset, and they read about the raping and they get pissed off. But it doesn't affect them personally. But if they can't buy the new car, or if their mother is suffering, you see, then they will start to wake up. And I think that needs to happen. I'm sorry, that's how it is. People
It,
are
it's
people are too brainwashed. They are too uh, relaxed. They get to buy whatever they want and so on. So this needs to happen in Sweden.
it was a lot of people think it was the French Revolution was about liberty and equality. That's nonsense. It ended up, those were some talking points they used, but the reality, what tipped it over the edge, was there was a very poor harvest in wheat and grain harvest in France in those years, or 2 years, I think, in a row, and that's what tipped it over the edge in the end. There were large groups of people that were marching on government buildings, and there's a French word, and I can't remember what it is now. There was two. There was what's called sans culotte, meaning without socks or without stockings, and there was a women's group, and they went up to a large march. I think it was thousands of women went to one of the government buildings, and the government official came out to make a speech, and that the women said, and it's in the history, we don't give a fuck about your speeches, give us bread, and that was what that was it. And of course, with the bad harvest, that the French state was broke at the time, they couldn't afford to import the grain that they needed, and there was a lot of maladministration too. But that was it. That's the bit that pushed it over the edge. And later on, they were talking about equality and everything, but that wasn't. That people were just hungry. They just had enough, and they were hungry. And it's as you say, but when it gets that personal, when it comes right into your own kitchen and your own lounge room, that's when you decide you have to act. And it could be, as you say, maybe times have got to get really bad for some people before
Yeah.
they see the light. So yeah,
We see this with the EU now. Uh, the pay raise that they are they decided for themselves. The EU Commission, they got a very nice pay raise, uh, thanks to themselves. And if people are getting poorer and those who govern are getting richer, you know, people who get
yeah,
pissed,
yeah.
people who get really, really angry. So
There's a lot of talk about Macron should just stand down, and I don't. People seem to think he's like a prime minister who can just walk out of the job or something, but it's actually different. He's elected for a fixed 7 year term in France as the president, and it's quite a long term. But given 7 years, mostly it's 4 years. Say in the case of the US, or maybe 5 years. 7 years is a long one, and this was done to try and give the French political system some stability. So it's not that easy for Macron to just walk out of the job. He could appoint Marine Le Pen as prime minister. I don't think he will, by the way, but technically he could do that, and that may calm things down a little bit. But he's kind of in a no-win situation. But if he just resigns the presidency, um, and they've got to call fresh elections, or maybe someone's appointed as an interim. That's probably going to be a huge watershed in French politics. Once those sort of precedents are set, anything becomes possible, and things could head in any direction. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in France there with Macron. I doubt he'll stand down, but again, we'll see what happens. But when you've got an approval rating of, I don't know, was it 18% or something?
yeah,
Yeah,
18.
he's
Yeah,
he's got a public image problem that he needs to do something about, and I don't think he can fix it. It's too late for that now.
oh,
So
absolutely.
uh,
It gives
uh,
you hope, though. This gives me a lot of hope. When democracy is sort of not working, they elected this leader and he fucks with them basically. It's a democracy problem too, isn't it? And we have
yeah,
the same thing in all over Europe with the EU. Democracy is, I think, the hope that people have. This idea that we can vote somebody off who's not doing a proper job. So when you start, as EU has been doing, when you start to rig democracy and make it something else, that's even worse. So we have a
yeah,
very,
yeah.
it's a dangerous situation that we have in Europe right now. I think people are
Well,
starting to get poorer. They are starting to get pissed off. We have these bureaucrats with their high salaries. And then on top of it all, we have a democracy that isn't really a democracy. So this is dangerous stuff.
it is, and between 1960, very few people saw it. I mean, I didn't at the time. Between say 1965 and maybe 1985, in that 20 years, all the major parties in the Western nations, Western white nations, all were taken over by globalists, and it was a slow sort of process, and it wasn't fully completed, I think, until the Berlin Wall came down and the Soviet Union collapsed. So we're talking maybe early 90s before that end game played out, and and nobody really saw it. There are a few things that were concerning, the way that jurisprudence was changing, that this equal outcome laws and things like that. So there were some signs there as we went along. Yeah, Ronald Reagan giving the illegal aliens amnesty in the United States in the early 80s and so on. There were all signs there, but particularly the left-wing political parties began to embrace cap- partly at least capitalist economics along with the conservative parties, and that really left the ground vacant. So the globalists ended up owning both of those major parties, and it's something that's continued to, in fact, got worse to this very day. And it's incredible that somebody like Donald Trump could actually come along. Imagine what things would be like if he hadn't come along. And he's been a game changer just in his own right. And the way they viciously attack him all the time, it means he's doing a good job, as far as I can tell. And I hope he continues to do it. And pulling troops out of Syria was a good and you know, I hope at least that he makes more moves like that and gets the wall. Just coming back to you mentioned about the salaries on the in the European Commission and so on, or the increase in salaries. I used to do a lot of business traveling a while ago, and Brussels was a place that I had to go to, and downtown in Brussels isn't that big a city, but in the downtown area there's cafes like the Falstaff Cafe and around there in that area, and that's where all the you know the flunkies from the European Parliament hang out, and and I would go there, and you know there'd always be a bunch of people there who were ready for a drink and you know a bit of schnapps and all that sort of stuff, and like they all had these very generous expense accounts, and you know, being their own business, I had a decent expense. What I thought was decent, it was nothing compared to those guys. They had some serious money to throw around, and even at the time I was thinking, well, I don't mind sort of joining in the frivolity here, but this is taxpayer money, guys. Don't you care? And no, they didn't. And it looks like nothing's changed. They're still the same. In fact, they're even more generous now, based on what I'm hearing. So,
Yeah,
um,
it's fantastic. Yeah, I just wish for these guys to go, and that the truth will come out properly. And there's more and more talk about this, of course. And this is
yeah,
we see in Sweden, the UK is a good example. I think how they have these two major parties, the Labour and the Conservatives, and when people voted for UKIP, they got some change for real. And now these guys, these assholes in the parliament are trying to stop it. This is also a very dangerous situation. And when people don't feel that they have a voice, things will
yeah.
happen.
I don't know if there's going to be some sort of I don't know. I can see an insurrection occurring, or something that's but the situation appears to be very close to volatile now, and once that's reached, you only need one mistake to be made, a nervous police officer to shoot somebody, or though something like that, and before you know it, it's turned into a full-blown conflagration, and maybe those sorts of things are inevitable based on the way events seem to be moving to a collision point. I hope it doesn't, and would advise anyone against that who's thinking it. But it's not impossible. We can't rule it out. And some people are even postulating that it's likely that there will be some sort of conflict, and that's that's deeply concerning. But again, not surprising given how the globalists are constantly overplaying their hand, and maybe it needs that to be resolved. But let's hope not.
Yeah. I like this awakening that I see in the UK and France. It's brilliant. I'm a bit sad about Sweden that it's taking so long. I mean, I wanted to go faster, of course, but the Swedes still have such a good life in general. So we'll see. I hope
We'll see.
something's gonna happen here.
Now, as Sanity for Sweden and Tassis today are looking at doing some more of these videos. So in your comments below, please make some suggestions and give us some pointers and any ideas or even topics that you'd like to see covered, and let's see how we go. but yeah, thanks everybody for joining, and thanks very much, Sanity.
Well, thank you, Tacitus. It was an honor. Talk to you
Talk,
again.
talk soon. Bye now.
All right.